We may live over 5,000 miles from Lincoln Financial Field, but what we lack in proximity, we make up for in film study. And each and every week, we'll be bringing you in depth film breakdowns from across the pond and the Sooner State. Welcome to On the Shane page. I am your host, Shane Half. You can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHalfNFL. And I am joined by BGN's own film guru, on his birthday, no less, Jonny Page. It's his birthday. You got to give him a follow at Jonny Page 9. Jonny, recording a podcast for your birthday. That's such
Yeah,
dedication to your craft. I applaud
yeah.
you.
21 plus 10, man, which is what I'm telling everyone today. Yeah, I've done the great, what everyone should do on their birthday, really, especially when they're off work. So I had a great day. Been uptown, basically ate, drunk as much as I possibly could, really, within reason with having a 7-month-old on me. So the beers was slightly less, but the food was therefore slightly increased. So I'm not sure if I'm like slightly tipsy, very full, quite uncomfortably full, but in like a good way. I couldn't have been that full because I just smashed a lovely donut literally 5 minutes before recording. So yeah, it should be a good pod. We were saying off air, it's actually quite an interesting one because we've got new things to talk about. Like the run game still sucks, but it sucks in a different way. So we can talk about it without just saying the same thing. So hopefully we've actually got some new things to say this week, Shane, which is awesome. And I did actually really enjoy this game, I must admit. There's always games every year that like I really want to win. And because last week was just so rough, I really wanted to win this one. I think part of the Carson Wentz thing at the link, and I was like, they can't lose this game. I really wanted them to do it. So I was glad that they beat. I actually like Carson Wentz, but I enjoyed this win quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Jonny, now that you're, as you said, 21 plus 10,
Yeah,
you've kind of officially reached that point where if you were an NFL player, we would call you old. So
yeah, it's
I'll
all
let you
downhill.
take that however you want to.
Yeah,
But,
no,
so
it's very fair.
all right. Well, let's dive in. And Jonny, since it is your birthday, I'll let you choose. Should we start on the offense or the defense today? Keeping in mind, we're probably going to spend like twice the time on whichever one you pick because that
Yeah,
seems to be our vibe.
well, let's do the offense. I said there's more unique stuff this week on offense. So should we get this show on the road on the offense?
All right, let's do it. You want me to lead us off or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay, let me get my screen shared here. Okay, so my first point on offense I want to talk about is the Eagles' scramble drill. I feel like Jonny and I have really complained about scramble drill for like 2 years now. And in this game, it felt like the Eagles finally got some things working. And it seemed like there were some rules that, at least maybe a few plays that just worked out better. And so this first play is the opening drive. It's the 4th and 4 where they choose to go for it. And I broke down on the past game review how awful this route concept is for 4th and 4. So I'm not going to do that here. But I just want you to notice A.J. Brown. So many times, and Hurts has all day to throw, of course, in the pocket, but so many times we've just seen guys stand there and nobody work to get open. And here you get A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts on the same page. Jalen points him deep, and you get the touchdown off of what honestly should have been a turnover on downs given that play call. And then there were a couple other really high leverage scramble drill moments, both on 3rd and long. We have got a 3rd and 15 here, and if I'm Jalen's QB coach here, I'm probably telling him like check the ball down to Dallas Goedert here and just get a few yards. You're not going to get the first down, but just get the ball out. And maybe that's why I'm not his QB coach because he does a fantastic job of starting to scramble forward. Let me get the whole play again here. He does a fantastic job of stepping up, catching number 58, looping inside, scrambling out to the sideline. Devontae Smith gets his head around and works back, and you end up converting on a 3rd and 15 that you had no business converting on. And then we get to a 3rd and 13. And again, this is going to be Hurts evading pressure and Hurts converting, this time to the bottom of the screen to A.J. Brown. And so there's pressure. He starts to scramble up, eyes downfield the whole time. And again, so many times we've seen the receiver just stand here, but A.J. Brown starts to act like he's going to run deep and then breaks back to the sticks, and you move the chains again when you should have been punting. So that's 3 times the Eagles should have had a turnover on downs. There should have been 2 3rd and longs that led to punts, and they got conversions on all of those, a touchdown off of one of them. And that's just such a huge improvement. Um, One of the biggest benefits of having a mobile quarterback is the ability to get those second reaction plays when your drawn up play doesn't work. And that's even more important for the Eagles, whose drawn up play is quite often garbage. If you can get a second play out of that, it's really nice. Now, it's worth pointing out, and Eric pointed this out on Twitter, that those 3 scramble drills and the play action bomb to Devontae Smith generated 20 expected points added, and the rest of the passes combined generated -1. So there's still issues in the passing game, and I don't think people should delude themselves into thinking there's not, just because Hurts threw for over 300 yards in this game. But scramble drill is a huge step in the right direction. At least if we can't fix the pass game design, maybe our good players can just override that and go make good plays anyway. So I was really impressed with scramble drill in this one.
Yeah, we sort of said before, we're not going to moan much about some of the design because, to be honest, we could say the same thing for like 3 years. So at some point, you're like, it is what it is. We can talk about it all day long, but the one thing that you can improve is how you coach individual things. And I think they had a real plan this week for the scramble drill. I know Sirianni came out and said they always coach it really well, but saying that is one thing, actually doing it is another thing. The AJ Brown one's my favorite example, because we've seen in the past that receivers and quarterback, they often don't seem on the same page in terms of like when to go short, when to go deep, and you end up getting like 2 receivers in the same area of the field, or one receiver just sort of standing there. What AJ Brown does really well on that rep is, you can see he starts to go vertical and then comes back towards the ball, but it's by design. He looks at Hurts. He knows where he's going. Devontae Smith does the exact same. Devontae Smith's running an out and up. And I don't believe in coincidences that much. So the fact that you had twice in the same game, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown running a vertical route, stopping and coming back to the ball and catching it on the sideline when Hurts rolled out to their side of the field, that seems to me like that's a plan. Like, that looks out of structure, right? The AJ Brown third down looked out of structure, but you can very easily say, right, we're going to call all hitches, which all hitches is not always what they call, because it could be like 4 verts, and it could be, if they're sitting deep, turn around, etc. So it could end up a comeback or a vertical route, but whatever it is. And then the plan could literally be, right, if we don't get the coverage we want, I'm going to roll right. We know we're 1-on-1 on the outside, come back towards the football. That's out of structure, but I've said this before, it's sort of in structure. So you can sort of like lie. And it might just be a coincidence. I might be completely wrong here. But the fact they had 2 plays that were identical this week outside of structure, one rolling to the left and one rolling to the right, maybe like makes me think they've looked at this and thought that's something we can do. I'll actually throw my first point in really quickly as well, because my other ones are a little bit longer. I'm only going to show one play, which is play 7 on my film thread. My first thing was a bit of a weird one, actually. I just put Hurts being really calm. I think we can talk all we want about like how well he played, and I think we all know he played very, very well in this game. I think the thing that stood out for me more than anything, Shane, if you just pause it pre-snap for a second, because I'll talk about this, was that this Vikings defense does an exceptionally good job confusing quarterbacks. And when I scouted the defense, it was sort of laughable. And I said off air, like, you've just got to sort of almost like ignore the chaos and just do what you can do. But quarterbacks do end up looking frazzled. They make some really bad mistakes against this defense, and they look under pressure. Hurts looked like this was a practice game. Like, he had no worry at all. And this is a really nice example. It's a really short throw. This ball ends up going to his right-hand side. It's just a little comeback, or just a little short hitch. But look at how much the Vikings try and confuse in pre-snap. They don't even have a single high safety. Their coverage drives me insane. They have like a wide safety, then he ends up walking towards the middle of the field. They end up showing like a linebacker through the A-gap, then they drop one A-gap, and I think they drop the edge defender here. And all of this is happening as Hurts is basically looking pre-snap. And then if you hit a play from here, even now it's changing. 22's creeping, one linebacker's creeping, another linebacker's creeping. The edge ends up dropping, and he just completes a really short throw. It's only like a 6-yard gain. But I watched it, and I was like, he doesn't seem to have any panic. He doesn't see the edge defender drop and think, right, I better go to the left-hand side. He just, nope, I know where the edge is going. It's Devontae Smith. I'll find him open. And I just thought a lot of the game was in rhythm. Except for the out-structure throws, most of this game was in rhythm, and it was very well designed, I thought, in certain places. Especially, though, the thing that stood out was just Hurts didn't seem to have any care in the world that they were rotating coverages at the last minute, which I thought was really cool because, as I said, as someone who watched the Vikings defense a lot last week, they terrified opposing defenses. So much so that defenses just didn't even bother going down the field on them. And Hurts felt like, I don't care what you're doing. I've almost got a plan in my head pre-snap. And most of the time, I think he executed it really well.
Yeah, it was a really good Hurts game. Contrary to what Twitter is trying to tell you at this point, but we were talking about that in the Discord.
If only someone could come up with disguising coverages, Shane, then Hurts wouldn't have a clue.
I
Just
know.
don't leave any single coverage, disguise your coverages, and vary up your fronts. Like, did the guy watch the Vikings defense this week? All they were doing was moving. If anything, it was too disguised. I find Flores a bit much at times. And there were some coverages in this game I thought were pretty awful because they were just doing so much. But anyway, yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, go on my Twitter and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yeah. Question here from Brett Eclipse said the players are talking about how Smitty was petitioning for the play action bomb and had to have Landon Dickerson relay that to get the play call. Is that normal?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know about the Landon Dickerson of it all. But yeah, a player seeing something and going to the coaching staff and being like, "This is going to work," is very common.
Yeah, I found that a little bit like people getting in. I saw people online saying like, "Oh, Patullo can't even like call a play." I'm like, "Well, hang on a minute. I'm not exactly going to give Patullo loads of credit, but the play is in the install. It's there. It's there to run. It's in the playbook. Then just make up a play." Yes, if Devontae Smith sees something, I want a coach that listens to the players out there. Like, that's perfectly fine.
It's similar to how Jonny and I talk about that when you're watching film, you can't focus on every player all at once. It's like that, only more on the sideline. Like, you're trying to call plays and you're watching what happens, and especially from the sideline and not a booth, you're not even getting the overhead angles. The perspective is off. Like, there's a lot of things to juggle there, and nobody knows more what the cornerback and the safety is doing every play than the receiver that's lined up on that side of the field. So that's totally normal. I'm not sure about the Landon Dickerson relaying it part, but
yeah, I haven't heard the Dickerson thing, but that could have just been a conversation, couldn't it? That someone, or you told someone as he was talking and it got relayed back. As long as the coaches are listening to players to an extent, that's fine. But that play was in the install. Patullo said they ran it on Wednesday. Like, that's not just a freaking moment. It's not Devontae Smith just making it up on the fly.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go to my second point. I want to talk about the Eagles' protections. And I want to look at back-to-back plays on the final drive. And for some reason, it won't let me draw on the screen, so this might be interesting. But the Eagles, I really liked their decision not to try to run the clock out. And instead to go try to get a first down, because I was fully prepared when they ran on first down and the Vikings took a timeout. I was fully prepared for them to run on second down, run on third down, and be content to punt and have the defense protect the lead. And I would have been really upset with that. Instead, they come out and they decide they're going to throw the ball. And on back-to-back plays, the Vikings showed a zero blitz. And I'm just going to roll a little bit closer to the snap here so you can see the safety comes down, kicks in this guy. So this is zero blitz. Like, maybe we could bail guys off of this, but this looks like zero pressure. And so if it's zero pressure, there's going to be a man free, and the Eagles just run double slants. And, I saw people online say, well, Goddard is open on this one, and he is, but usually when you run those, you are running the first slant to clear space for the second, and you just don't have time to read that. And also, if one of these guys drops out off the line, Goddard's route is more easy to get underneath than A.J. Brown's. And so you can see this is open. Like, it's a bad throw. He's getting hit. But I didn't like the protection behind it. And this is something the Eagles consistently asked Saquon to do in this game, and he struggled with. But when they get up to the line and number 55 bumps out here, so you don't want to ask your running back to block a defensive lineman. You want to ask him to block one of the linebackers. And so to me, what the Eagles choose to do is they slide their protection to the left, and they ask Saquon to come across Jalen Hurts into the play side and block number 55. And so it's a further distance for him to travel. You're asking him to block a guy that's in the throwing window. Like, if you're throwing it to the other side of the field, I don't mind you having him cross here. But I don't like having the running back cross to the play side to try to pick up a linebacker that now has a head of steam. And when you add on to that the way the Eagles have to go silent count, and it's easy to time up their snaps, you can see how this just causes issues. The guy's right in Jalen Hurts' face. The ball's got to come out a little quicker than you wanted. It's a bad throw. We could have protected that better.
Just
Like,
quickly, Shane, I had this point when we watched, I can't remember the game, was it the Rams game? And was it AJ Dillon who had Jared Verse?
yes.
I'm not blaming Stoutland for it, but the Eagles ask, I don't know if other teams do it the same way the Eagles do, and I must admit, it's one of those points, you know, when you have when you're watching film, but the Eagles ask their back to do quite a lot in pass protection at the moment. I think Barkley's actually done so much better than I thought he would have. Shipley was bad in this game. Like, he had 2 reps that were just awful. But they do ask their running backs to do quite a lot in pass protection. It's just an interesting way the offense is designed. They seem to be quite comfortable asking backs to pass protect against very good players. Yeah, I just remember the Jared Verse one stands out against, I'm sure it was Jared Verse against AJ Dillon. Or it might have even been, maybe it wasn't Verse, maybe it was the Broncos game.
No, it was
might
Verse.
Have been, was it Verse?
Verse,
I'm sure they had another one against the Broncos as well. But yeah, I think all of the backs seem to get beat every week. And some of it is maybe none of them are exceptional, but also maybe it's really hard on them.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a thought I had watching this week.
Yeah, so to me, like, if you just slide the line to the left and you let Saquon block number 51 instead, that's just easier. And honestly, you don't often want to have a back going on a defensive end, but if you wanted to full slide this to the left to get offensive linemen on the 5 guys closest and just have him hit the end, this ball's coming out fast anyways. It's 0 pressure. This defensive end is unlikely to get there even if it was a free run. So to me, either one of those would be better. And I thought they did a better job of that on the second one. So they same kind of look here. The Vikings are all up on the line. We're calling 0, and calling the sluggo was a brilliant move here because you just tried to throw the slant. It was open. It's going to be open again. Isaiah Rodgers overplays it. This is an easy little pitch and catch. And so I'll play that out, and then we can talk about the protection. One thing that's different is they keep Dallas Goedert in to block this time. And I actually think they block it kind of poorly, but just schematically, the blocking made a lot more sense, and so it doesn't end up mattering. And so let's get right to the snap here. And so this time what the Eagles are going to do is they just slide out here. Full slide to the left. It's confusing when it's the left, but it's the right of the screen. And I think Goddard's supposed to take this end, and Barkley is supposed to come out to the edge, and he doesn't because Goddard gets beat inside and he kind of tries to help out there. And so you actually end up with like 2 free runners potentially. See, he jumps inside, and so Saquon tries to pick that up. But even with this free runner off of the edge, look at the time Hurts has. He's just able to fade back and throw that. I just think it's a much easier block to ask your back to step out to the non-play side that he's already lined up on than to come across the formation into the play side. And so, back to the first play, if that's the way that you want to run that protection, just align Barkley on the other side of Hurts. Just give him that shorter block, because it was something, not just those 2 plays, but consistently, I felt like Barkley struggled with in this game, and they kept asking him to do.
Yeah, and as I said, Shipley had a couple of poor reps as well, didn't he?
Yes.
This is totally off topic, so I'm just going to put you on the spot, which is always good. Another thought I had when watching this week's film is Dallas Goedert still Dallas Goedert?
He doesn't seem, from a blocking perspective, he does not seem to be the same player.
From an everything perspective, if you watch the, there was a couple of all hitches they ran in this game, and man's turning slow, like really slow. When was the last time he had one of those like broken tackle type plays where he just like bounced off like 4 defenders? And I'll be honest, I don't think he's blocking very well in the run game. I'm going to get into it more next week, and I've got quite a few things to excuse him with the run game, but I think maybe like we speak a lot about tight end too, and I think maybe tight end in general is just a bit of a weakness this year. And he had a really good game against the Giants a few games ago, Goddard, and his numbers aren't bad, and he's been relatively healthy this year for Goddard's sake, but I haven't really seen like what I'd like to have seen this year out of him, especially in the run blocking game. But that's probably a conversation for another day, probably an off-season pod when we see what happens with him.
He's definitely not going to be an Eagle next year. He's gone.
Yeah. I've got 2 things I'm going to get into, and I'm almost going to combine them because they're both big parts. So the obvious thing is, Shane, and we had a comment from No Scenes, if that's how you pronounce his name on wherever the comment came from, YouTube it sounds like. I'm going to do a deep dive into the Eagles run game next week. So the good thing about the bye week is we can get into something. I'm hoping actually to get a couple of offensive line guests because there are things about this run game that confuses me. And I'm also going to write about it for Bleeding Green Nation. So if you want to see video footage of me breaking it down with whoever the guest is, subscribe to Patreon. If you want to read about it, read BGN. The best thing is to do is both, because I probably always leave out something that I don't put in the other one on purpose. So long story short, the Eagles run game this week was atrocious. I don't really know what to say anymore. I can't be bothered to talk about Hurts in the run game. They don't want to do it, so whatever. There could be injury reasons. There could be concussion reasons. There could be all sorts of reasons. Who knows? They don't want to do it, so I'm going to shut up talking about it anymore because they just don't do it very often. They used to run a really diverse run game with about 7 or 8 runs every week. They now run 3. They run inside zone, split zone, and outside zone. And to be honest, if you really want, you could combine split zone and inside zone as the same play. If you want to count outside zone toss and outside zone as 2 different plays, all right, they maybe run 4, but that is literally it. So big point this week, and I've combined 2 of them for an obvious reason, was under center runs. So the Eagles said they really wanted to get into under center runs this week. I don't know if I believe it, and play 1 with the first one to show Shane. So when you watch this Vikings defense, and I commented on this in the preview, they play a lot of light boxes and they play a lot of defensive backs, and they don't defend the run well. I'm not convinced, by the way, maybe I'll be wrong, under center's here to stay. I think this may have been a little bit of a specific matchup thing this week. I'll be intrigued to see if we do it 20 times again this week. But long story short, why did they want to go under center? And these are the plays I did like, the toss plays. And with Cam Jurgens out there, it actually worked pretty well. So I wanted to talk about this play, or not this play in general, actually, just under center in general. It started working relatively well early on, and it looked like the Vikings weren't prepared for it. And the Eagles had a few good runs on the first drive. Then the run game became basically a travesty, and there were a few other reasons. They started playing Fred Johnson as a 6th offensive lineman, and that went well at times as well. There were a few decent runs. But if you go to play 3, just very quickly, what happened quite a lot, and you can see it on this clip here, is the Vikings sort of knew what was coming. If you look at how quickly, like 22, 51 are getting across, I think that's another poor block by Goddard, by the way. But then again, they're asking him to make quite a difficult block inside, to be fair. But as the game went on, it felt like the Vikings just had a better and better read on what they were doing. And by the end of it, it got a bit ridiculous. To be honest with you, the running game in the second half from under center was appalling. And play 5 is the one that everyone's talking about. So to answer your question, No Scenes, you said, like, is it scheme? Is it individuals? The boring truth is, if you pause it here, Shane, sorry, just pre-snap. The boring truth is it's both. The players are not run blocking well. Whether Landon Dickerson's healthy or not, he's not mauling people. Tyler Steen's not a mauler. Jurgens got injured. Lane Johnson even had a couple of reach blocks in this game, Shane, that he struggled with. Jordan Mailata completely whiffs once a week. Now we've got to ask ourselves, has Jordan Mailata regressed? At however old he is, as I frantically Googled his age, at 28 years of age, has he got worse? Is he suddenly missing 1 block every single week because he's worse? Or is he missing 1 block every single week because the team is asking him to make really difficult blocks and the defense knows what's coming? So there was 2 issues I had in this game. First of all, when they went under center, it was very, very obvious the Vikings knew what was coming. So look at the Vikings on this play, Shane. 6 men on the line of scrimmage. Literally, you've got a 6-man front, and you've got 2 linebackers behind it. So you've got 8 in the box, and you've basically got a safety who is ready to get downhill as well. Which, by the way, is a good thing about under center, because obviously you can run play action later on. You've got Brett Tooth in at center. Is it Toth or Tooth, if I'm pronouncing that correct? Toth, there you go. You are asking him to make possibly the most ridiculous reach block I've ever seen. He is lined up in the middle of the field, basically right down the hash. This guy's 3 yards, like, inside. Like, that is such a difficult block to make. Jason Kelsey would struggle to make that block, let alone a backup guard playing at center. So part of the issue with the run game is that you're just asking your offensive linemen to do things that they can't physically do. I actually think Lane Johnson struggles here on this play, Shane. So everyone looks at the centre, but look at Lane Johnson's block as well. If I was to ask you who's 56 blocking and who's 65 blocking pre-snap, right? Just ask any ordinary fan, you'd say, well, it would make logical sense for 56 to block the guy right in front of him. They actually expect Lane to cross his face all the way across. They're asking two difficult reach blocks on this play. And that's really, really, really hard to do. So the offensive line just collapsed. And like it just got worse and worse and worse. Again, if you go to play 10 really quickly, Shane, as well. This was the Jordan Mailata whiff. It's just every week someone does this. Someone on the offensive line at least once has a play like this. And at what point do you start thinking they know what's happening? Like I'm watching 58. Does he know what the Eagles are doing here? Like he knows they're trying to get outside. And again, I don't know because it's really, really hard to see this. But all I know is that they can't run block. I said I'd go on a while, but I'm combining 2 and 3. However, the third point this week, Shane, is obviously play action. Because how can you talk about this game without play action? In a weird way, I don't want to sound like Kevin Patullo, but they got so predictable that they were going to run, and it's a play 8 on the film footage you're looking for. In a weird way, it got so predictable that actually they started getting really predictable coverage. Because if you pause it just pre-snap, what do the Vikings do when the Eagles go under center here? They rotate into a 6-man front, and they bring 2 guys in the box, just like we saw before. So what have you got? You've basically got 3 deep defenders. And then it's game over. Devontae Smith runs an absolutely beautiful route. I feel sorry for Isaiah Rodgers because he got hammered in this game. But in reality, he was put in a really difficult defensive scheme. Smith runs just a gorgeous route here. Like the nuances to bend outside, to not run straight. It's just a standard post. But he makes sure he gets in his blind side and then cuts inside when he flips. It's a perfect play. So if you want to evaluate the under center run game this week, Shane, it was terrible. And the fact that people are like excited about the fact they ran more under center is almost laughable. However, you can't separate the run game from the pass game. We've been calling on sequencing. We've been calling them to marry stuff up. Well, good news, they did it. The bad news is if they block like this from under center every week, teams aren't going to get fooled by play action anymore. Teams aren't going to bring up a 6-man front. Teams aren't going to put 9 men in the box, 8 men in the box. So I'm excited and happy by the under center play action game. The huge issue is they don't block well from under center. When they run, some of their best runs in this game, Shane, were from shotgun. And on every single one, I think you tweeted this, and I saw Devin Jackson tweet it as well. He actually didn't tweet about Hurts. He just tweeted about the run game. But on every successful one, Jalen Hurts held a linebacker. Sometimes he held a linebacker and an edge. And what I mean by that is number 44 was, I think it was a linebacker on a couple of occasions, was literally going the opposite direction to Barkley because Jalen Hurts may keep it.
Even though he never does.
Yes, but when you go up, but you can't take the risk, I guess. Whereas when you go under center, you get nothing. You can't really boot action like edge defenders. They're too clever these days. They're too athletic. It's really hard to take one out of the game. How many times have we seen an Eagles edge unblocked, chase down a play backside? So good news, play action and under center worked really effectively. The run and pass game was linked much better together. Bad news is I don't think it's sustainable unless the under center run game gets better. And as I said, next week I'm going to get into that in a lot of detail because I am fascinated to look at why this run game has got so bad. Where is wham? Where is trap? Where is counter? Where is tackle trap? It's not there. But yeah, Eric, it's a long con. I know, the 7-week con. Don't throw one play. The longest setup in human history is 6 weeks of terrible run game for one down the field shot against the Vikings. But there you go.
I can't wait to see what they cook up over the second half of the season for Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah. I almost feel bad, by the way, but because you did a pass game review on Patreon, we don't get into it too much here. But for those wondering, like, thoughts on Hurts, like, yeah, he was really good in this game. Really good. Really good outside of structure. Really good. The accuracy on deep shots were brilliant. The anticipation on a few throws were really good. So I didn't bring him up in one of my points this week because, as I said, you do it a lot in the pass game review. But couldn't get out of it without just mentioning him before you finish with a very cheery final point, Shane.
Yeah, Hurts was awesome in this game, and I went like 42 minutes on the past game review, so I try not to do too terribly much of repeats here, but if you're watching or listening and you enjoy this stuff, go check out our Patreon at Eagles Film Room. $5 a month tier gets you my weekly pass game review as well as other things, but you can grab a free 1 week trial, watch everything I had to say about Hurts in this game. It was an awesome game. But I want to talk about Brett Toth because, well, and this play is the one you talked about earlier. They try to get him to do this reach block, and like there's so many different ways you could do this that don't involve asking him to do that. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but why don't we like block like a normal team and we could pin pull somebody through or something? I mean, there's so many ways you could do something like this, but
sorry, Shane, or just call off the play, just audible. Hurts, Patuda, I don't know who's responsible for this, but run a different run play. Run to the right.
just
Like,
run
someone's
duo.
got to be able to do something. You can't do this.
Yeah, run duo up the middle. Anyways,
Yeah.
so many things you could do there, but this is a really hard block for anybody, much less an offensive guard playing out of position at center for his second snap of the day, by the way. Second snap that he's made. Like, he's not a center. And so he's focused on how do I get the ball where it's supposed to be. And oh, by the way, now I have to pull off one of the most ridiculous blocks that you could ask a guy to do. And beyond that, this isn't Landon Dickerson that you moved to center, a good guard. Brett Toth's not even a good guard. He's a bad guard that's a backup playing out of position. Like, why don't we just make it a little easier for him? But sometimes it doesn't matter because here he's got a pretty normal block and he just gets blown up. And that's such a ridiculous move by Saquon, by the way. Like, just watch this and tell me Saquon's the problem with the running game and it's regression from his workload. Spins, cuts back the direction he just spun and turns a 4-yard loss into a 5-yard gain. Here they try to get him to reach block again, and he gets blown up. Also, Landon Dickerson gets blown up. So again, like, why are we doing it this way? Why are we asking guys to block this? Like, just be smarter. Like, let's just block out to the edge here, and you could pin pull. You could get it. There's so many different ways you could do it. Stop asking everybody to make the most difficult blocks of their career. So that one's bad. And then we get to this play action dig route that our friend Max pointed out. But Brett Toth just gets destroyed into the backfield. And you can see how open this dig is and how late Hurts is to it. But he's so late to it because watch Brett Toth off the snap here.
Another play action rep, by the way.
Yeah, watch it, just boom, beaten immediately. Hurts is trying to figure out where to get so he's not going to get hit. And then he's able to make that throw. But I went and looked it up. The highest blown block rates from Sports Info Solutions among interior offensive linemen right now to see where Brett Toth ranked in the run game. He has the third highest blown block rate among all NFL interior offensive linemen. So he's killing this team. And by the way, speaking of killing a team, the Houston Texans have number 1, number 2, and number 5 on that list. So poor CJ Stroud, man.
The Eagles could do. I haven't looked at Cam Jurgens this week, but if he's not there, because I agree, I don't know how playable he is. Do you just go Drew Kendall and take the hit? Maybe play Matt Pryor at guard and move Dickerson to center, then you lose 2 positions. We said preseason the offensive line depth was a little bit worrying.
Yeah, for me,
it's proven to be true, isn't it?
I mean, you should have a feel for how these guys are in practice, and assuming that Toth is your best option, just don't ask him to make so many stupid blocks.
Yeah.
Like, just give him easier blocks. I don't know. There's ways to protect him.
Yeah, we're going too long already, but we've had tons of comments already about scheme. And I think overall, I haven't actually watched your QB review yet, but I imagine you'll be similar in the scheme was maybe 50% better, some good play action stuff, still some stuff that makes you tear your hair out, but some promising moments, but it's still a team that is heavily led by talent. But as we've said for ages, do you know what? They've got talent. So I don't mind if it's a little bit more simplistic. And is there anything very, very quickly, because we're going too long before we wrap up to the defense?
The under center play action, under center play action and the scramble drill were improvements in just the quick 10,000 foot view. Those were improvements. The rest of the pass game design still stinks though.
Yeah.
Anytime the Eagles go 2-2, it's a wasted
Do
play.
you know I heard something this week very quickly because I listened to it about an hour ago by Ollie Connolly. I was listening to his pod, not about the Eagles specific, but he mentioned an Eagles stat. And if I get the stat wrong, I apologise. But I think he said something like the Eagles have gone 3-1 sets this year without any like movement or motion into it. Only like 45 times or something this year, which is like historically low, and they're like third in EPA or something, or sixth in success rate. So it's basically, long story short, the basic premise Ollie pointed out was they're really good at 3-1, and they don't do it very often, which doesn't surprise anyone here. But right, let's
And they absolutely suck from 2-2 stacks,
Yep.
and they run it all the time.
But on that cheery note, if you want to learn more about why Shane hates everyone, go to Patreon. Check out the past game review, because as I mentioned, we are taking that back from the pod these days because Shane doesn't want to spend an hour recording something and then repeating his exact same points on here. Right, let's talk about defense. Where do you want to start with this week, Shane?
I can lead us off here. Let's talk about Nakobe Dean. I don't have film for this one. I did a Nakobe Dean player spotlight video for Patreon. So again, every week we let our members vote on a player, and Eric or I go and watch every snap they played and just talk about what we saw. And so I went through the entire defensive film watching only Nakobe Dean, and Nakobe Dean's exactly what he was last year. And that's impressive for a guy coming off of that injury. I had serious concerns if he would ever be able to recapture that athleticism. But Nakobe Dean downhill in the run game when he's kept clean is tremendous. He can simply shoot gaps that Jihad Campbell cannot. And in pass coverage, he's fine. I think Campbell's probably a little better than him in pass coverage. They both struggle if they're not kept clean in the run game. Like, Nakobe Dean can't stack and shed blocks very well. But there were a few plays this game where he just triggered downhill and blew up run plays in a way that you're not getting from Jihad Campbell. So the Eagles have a conundrum. In this game, they played Nakobe Dean as the inside linebacker with Jihad Campbell as an edge rusher on all 23 snaps of base defense. By the way, Campbell lined up as a defensive lineman 28 times, but he only rushed the passer 3 times. So they're not rushing him, but they were lining him up on the edge. Nakobe Dean also played 8 snaps of nickel when they took Campbell off the field near the end of the game. And so I don't know if that's a, wow, Nakobe Dean is playing better than we thought he was going to, so we're going to put him out there, or if that was a planned thing. I just really noticed it near the end of the game. So I don't know what the Eagles are going to do here, and it's a great problem to have, but Nakobe Dean is the better player right now. He's a better player than Jihad Campbell, and for a team that wants to win now, that is important. But also, Nakobe Dean is on the last year of his deal and in all likelihood is gone next year. And it's not like Jihad Campbell is playing bad. Jihad Campbell was the odds-on favorite going into Week 7 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year at plus 200. He's played well. And so maybe you work out a rotation where it's like we situationally play Dean on rundowns and we play Campbell on what we think are passing downs. But then you think about Campbell. Early in the year, I was pointing out how bad he was against the run, and I've pointed out improvements over the last few weeks. You strip away that development opportunity for him if you're just protecting him from run situations. So I would assume the Eagles are going to try to rotate those guys. What I really don't want them to do, though, is to continue to use Campbell as an edge rusher. I would rather see Campbell just be a backup linebacker that doesn't play than them try to force him into being an edge, because I think that will tank his development tremendously. And you mentioned, Azeez Ojulari was injured in this game, and so maybe that's got to do with why they played Campbell on the edge so much. But if they want to do the Dean on the field in base as a linebacker, I would rather them just take Campbell off than continually kick him down to an edge rusher. So I'm not sure how they're going to handle that. I do trust Vic Fangio implicitly, but this is kind of the age-old, we got to balance development and win now and figure out how that all plays out. So Nakobe Dean, I thought, looked really good this week. I just don't know what to make of how they're going to handle this linebacker situation.
Yeah, see, my other points are quick, so we'll spend a little bit of time on this because I think it's the most interesting part of the defense all week, you'd say, the most interesting discussion. Firstly, Vic Fangio doesn't think he's an edge either. Listen to any Vic Fangio, press conference ever. He clearly doesn't think he's an edge defender. Look at where he's played him this year. Yes, he can rotate to edge. I couldn't believe this when I looked it up, but I looked up the numbers, and I know I commented on it in the Patreon Discord. He rushed the passer 3 times this game, Jahar Campbell. Like, that's bizarre. He played edge. Nakobe Dean rushed the quarterback 3 times. Zach Bourne rushed the quarterback 7 times. So basically, they're saying he does not rush the quarterback. He played edge on like a significant amount of snaps and rushed 3 times. How many times have you seen an edge defender drop into coverage that much? He dropped into coverage 40 times in this game. Zach Bourne was 42, and Zach Bourne played 9 more snaps. I take a little bit of disagreement actually with you in that Dean being better than Campbell. I guess it defines on what your priorities are, like how you view defense and sort of who you want. I think Campbell is definitely better in coverage, and for me, that's a big win. I think there's a very legitimate argument. You could play Dean on first down and play Campbell on like second and long and every third down. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't think what they did this week is sustainable. Personally, he's not an edge. I don't mean, can you really play with an edge who rushes the quarterback 3 times? And yes, it gives you versatility schematically, was what I was trying to say. Because obviously you don't know who's coming and who's dropping, but to an extent, you do know who's coming and dropping. You know Campbell's not coming because he's done it 3 times this week. So unless they significantly line him up, like I guess the point where personally I'd stick a tight end on him if I was an opposing team. I would say 5 offensive linemen, you take the other 4 tight ends, stand to block him if he rushes.
Well, we've seen tight ends stonewall him. So
yes, he doesn't have a great ability to rush the quarterback yet. He just doesn't. If you look at his pass rushing numbers this year, they're extremely low because he's not a great pass rusher. He's very good in coverage. That's his game. So, I think I'm looking at his PFF numbers here. He's rushed the quarterback 41 times this year. That's not a lot. For a guy who's played a lot of snaps this year, they don't think he can do it very much. I know you could say, well, that's because he's great in coverage. Well, so is Zach Bourne, and Zach Bourne still rushes the quarterback more than he does. And Zach Bourne is even better in coverage. So I think it's really interesting. Brandon Graham's coming back. Nolan Smith's going to be back. You're not going to tell me he's going to keep Nolan Smith off the field and Brandon Graham on the field playing edge. I imagine it will just be a bit of a rotation. I think right now what Fangio's good at is he wants the best players on the field most of the time. And there's not many lineups the Eagles can put out there where Zach Bourne, Nakobe Dean, and Jahar Campbell aren't the best 11 players. So he's trying to make it work. But I'm not convinced it's going to be a consistent part of their defense. I think it might be a little bit more of a timeshare, or maybe a little bit more of early downs. We see Nakobe Dean, late downs we see Campbell. That's just how I feel about it anyway. And it might be, as you said, that they want to play Dean more because they want to win now. But I think Campbell's been very good, and he's a rookie, and I would try and develop him more, and I'd want to keep him in a rhythm every single week. But that is obviously the most interesting thing to look out for next week. I also, by the way, have concerns about Campbell setting the edge as an edge defender. If you think he lacks physicality as an off-ball linebacker, setting the edge is pretty tough as well. You've got to take on pulling guards sometimes. That's not the way Campbell plays. So I'm not sure I see him as an edge as much as the Eagles did this week.
Yeah, totally agree with all of that. Let's get to your first point, Jonny. Where did you want to go?
That is a great question because I completely forgot it was my point because I assumed that was it. Right, let's talk about
you are good at saying let's be quick this week and then spending more time on my point than I did.
Yeah, but there was good stuff this week. It's not like we're doing the same old, oh, look, 2x2. Look, they don't run anywhere. Great. They did have the 15,000th time. My 3 points on D are quick, so I'll get the quick ones out of the way first as well. I just wanted to talk very briefly. I thought the Eagles' run defense was a lot better this week. It wasn't perfect, and they had some trouble setting the edge again. But the Vikings are a sort of grind out run game, and the Eagles had quite a few nice stops. And I thought basically the biggest reason why was Jordan Davis, massively, and I thought Ajomo showed up as well against the run in this one. And I thought I'd just show one play, just play 4, just for those of you watching. If you want to see a specific play, I'm not breaking down anything in particular, but just watch how stout Davis was at the point of attack. The Eagles continue to play Carter, Davis, and Ajomo a hell of a lot of snaps. And I think Davis has his up and down weeks where maybe fatigue is an issue. But I think this week, after a long bye, we saw the good Jordan Davis again. My only hope is that he doesn't get worn down because he's playing so many snaps. But this will be a real test this week because they got bullied by the Giants up front last week. And I hope this is a sign that maybe Jordan Davis can lead a fight back this week against the Giants. So my first point, short and sweet. I thought Rundy was better. I thought gap fits were better than last week, but I thought the biggest difference was just they won up front. And last week they didn't win up front. And sometimes football is simple in that way.
Yeah. Eagles need to go get another defensive tackle so they can work this rotation a little bit more and so they can keep Byron Young off the field. But, okay. I want to talk about, this will be quick too, but just a callback to our last film show when I spoke about how the Eagles were defending scrape routes on RPOs. And so I want to show the two examples. And I think I showed both of these last week, but how the tight end for the Giants would come across and the Eagles would go over the top of him and give Jackson Dart room to run. And so there you see Azeez Ojulari doing it. Now we've got Zadarius Smith, may he rest in peace, doing it on the other side. And I specifically spoke about last week, the way you want to defend that is they're trying to read when that guy comes across the formation. If you go over the top of him, the quarterback is going to pull the ball and roll and run. If you go underneath him, they're going to hand it to the running back. And so my solution is just run through him. Complicate that read. You knock that guy off of his route if it's a run. You knock him off his ability to block if he's just blocking. Either way, you're taking him out of the play. Like a read option like this is specifically designed to take you out of the play as the read defender, so make sure you take somebody out of it with you. And Jalix Hunt here at the top of the screen does exactly that here. And when I saw this happen live, I came up out of my seat because just run through the guy. Like, see, that's supposed to be a pass. And you notice that, like, you just can't make the pass now because he's coming across. Boom, we hit you. Now everything's just thrown off. And so I just wanted to shout that out because it's something I talked about last week. And we saw it this week from Jalix Hunt. So I was pretty excited to see that.
Yeah, that's been something the Eagles' edges don't do very well. I wasn't going to talk about him now, but let's... No, actually, I won't. I'll save him for the end. Let's end on the positive. The other point I wanted to make was the Eagles have like 3 plays every week where communication isn't very good in the back end, and they're still learning. And I actually wanted to get your take on this. So I did my usual, Shane, play one of my film thread. When I stare at a play 100 times and I go insane, I message my resident Eagles film guys, which many of you know who they are from mentioning, and they also disagreed on this one. So I'm interested to see what you think. It looks like cover 8 and they're playing like cover 2 to the top of the screen. I have a problem with Quinyon Mitchell in, I don't know how to describe this. When he's a flat defender, I think he gives you nothing if it's not obvious. And I'm not criticizing Quinyon here. It's just a takeaway. Because if you pause it now, Shane, right? Just pause it in pause it in 1 second, right? Who is Quinyon Mitchell covering on this play?
Nobody.
He's not covering flat because there's a flat defender. He's not covering deep because there's technically a deep defender. There's 2 men on his side of the field running routes. So I don't know what he's meant to do, but I can tell you now, Vic Fangio is not saying, you know what you should do? Is cover no one. So there is a disconnect between Makuba. Unfortunately, he's always involved in these. I think Makuba spends too long on the crossing route before getting back outside if he's a cover 2. But to be fair, I think this is a really good play call, by the way, to target this like split safety, cover 6, cover 8 type of coverage. And we saw the Rams run a very similar play, didn't we? Like a tight end leak a few weeks ago and they caught the Eagles out. This is like a similar style of play. The post and then the wheel from the same side of the field. But I couldn't decide who was at fault. But I just looked at Quinyon and I was like, who are you covering? You clearly don't need to cover the flat guy because you can see Zach Baldwin is right in front of you, driving on the flat receiver. So who are you actually covering on this play? And this was one play. And before I move on to the second one, just quickly, and this is why I'm in that communication. I don't know exactly who's at fault, but Makuba and Quinyon have got to do a better job communicating what's going on there. But did you have any thoughts on this one, just really quickly?
I think Quinyon should stay with this deep route.
See, that's what I thought. One of the film guys agreed, and one of them didn't, which is always good fun, isn't it?
As far as I know, when you're running, I'm going to call it cover 6 because I hate calling it cover 8. It's just quarter, half, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
on the half side of the field, the corner should be in a squat technique, which I've always been taught means that you are funneling number one inside and you do not come to the flat unless the ball goes there. So he should be syncing with Addison here, and only if the ball is thrown to the flat should he rally to the flat. Like, you're essentially begging them to throw to the flat because you odds are there's a linebacker there unoccupied, which there is, that can take it. So to me, Quignon should not allow this guy behind him. He should be in position to make a play, and he should only break to the flat if the ball is thrown there. But also, no idea what Makuba's doing. Like, if he's the half-field defender here, he's got to be able to be over the top of both of these, and that's tough, but I don't know. But yeah, I would say the primary offender there is Quignon. Who agreed with me, Sean or Honest NFL?
Honest was similar to both of us.
Okay.
Sean was a bit more on the design rather than blaming Quignon, and we had a good chat, and my argument was still just can't see Fangio saying, like, to me, he's just doing nothing. And it's not the first time, is it? We've had these plays where he doesn't know if to go deep or go short, and you end up, like, you're not covering anyone. You're literally not covering anyone. And I wanted to just mention communication. I meant to start this point by saying a lovely little intro by saying, like, Shane, if there was one word you could use to describe Fangio's defense when it's good, what would you say? And I was hoping you'd say communication.
Communication.
There you go, genius. And do you want to see a really good example, Shane, of not communicating very well? It is play, dun 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 dun, as I scroll through play 8, and this is proper bad communication. Again, don't know whose fault it is, but I can tell you right now, they run a very simple motion here. Pre-snap, Cooper DeJean says, someone go with him. And who goes with him, Shane? No one. So if you pause this, and the Eagles got away with one here big time, just after the snap, just like when they're into their roots, like a little bit further, like now, the Eagles have 3 over 1. You could argue 4 over 1 and 2 over 3. Fangio's whole thing is being +1 in coverage. That is a disaster. And if Wentz throws that, and thank God Zach Bourne is such a good pass rusher, man. Zach Bourne is a ridiculously strong pass rusher. Thank God he shoves the offensive guard back into Wentz's lap, because otherwise Wentz throws his vertically. And this should be a touchdown. That's gone. Jalen Nader's gone. And at some point, the Eagles are going to get caught by this lack of communication, because it's happening every week. There's like 3 or 4 plays where I'm like, there's a mistake being made in the secondary. And again, I don't know what they're meant to
push out there, because
that's what's really odd.
Is he trying to push Campbell out there?
I guessed Campbell, but even if Campbell runs out there, Shane, they're still screwed.
Yeah.
If Campbell runs out there, they're 3-on-3, and then they still don't really want to live in a 3-on-3 world. I think they only rushed. Did they rush 4 or 5 on this one? Is this like a fire zone? Let's have a look. No, see, they rush 4. There is no way if they rush 4, they want to be 3 over 3. No way. They need to be 4 over 3. So there should be 2 extra defenders over there. Maybe DeJean move. Even, you know what I'm saying? Even if Campbell's there, it's still wrong. Like, I can tell you now, Vic Fangio didn't draw it up like that. And there's just a couple of plays when every week I think this is going to catch him out. That was the worst one I've seen on film in a while. But I thought I'd mention it.
It feels like DeJean should be running with this. Like,
yeah, I agree.
So already they have DeJean. So you get into how do you define the passing strength?
I hate that stuff, especially when the
Eagles are saying the top of the screen because that's where their nickel is, because it's 2 wide receivers, but there's technically 3 threats to the bottom, but one of them's a running back and a tight end.
Possibly wrong pre-snap as well.
But
possibly an issue pre-snap.
It could be, but it's valid. Some teams will do this. They will consider the 2 wide receivers to be the strength over a wide receiver, tight end, running back.
If you think about it, though, Shane,
that's valid.
Born blitzes, right? If they run just a simple, if they don't do any motion at all, they just run 3 routes on the right-hand side, the running back drops out. Campbell's got to get all the way across from middle of the field, and they're still only 3 over 3. So it's a really weird one.
Yeah.
Just looks wrong to me. Anyway, let's move on before we pick holes
there's
in
the
play.
Potential they're wrong pre-snap, but I definitely think DeJean should be following, because it clearly becomes the passing strength when there's 4 guys here and you didn't follow. So
yeah, it's odd.
Yeah. Anyways, All right. You mentioned Andrew Makuba. Let's talk Andrew Makuba. He is my last point. Um, I've got 4 plays I'll show of his. A couple are good, a couple are really bad, and that's kind of what you get with Makuba. He has definitely struggled with consistency, but on this one, I think he does a really good job of picking up this crossing route. And so you can sort of see right here, there's 2 guys running at him, right? There's a guy running vertically, and there's a crosser coming. And I think he rightly decides here that Cooper DeJean has this guy, but there is nobody to pick up this crosser. And so he kind of leaves Cooper DeJean one-on-one and undercuts this crosser, and Wentz throws it out of the back of the end zone. I thought that was a really good heads-up play. Maybe freelancing a little bit there, but in a way that makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, we get the interception, which thank you, Carson Wentz, for being a knucklehead. But I think he does a good job falling back under this and making that catch. And so, good start to the game. But then we get into some where we struggle. And this is the play you just showed. And yeah, there's some coverage things going on here. And at the end of the day, you have to make this tackle. Like, if you make this tackle,
the technique is rough.
It's going to be 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. If you miss the tackle, but you force him back inside where you have help, it's probably going to be a first down. But it's certainly not going to be this kind of a game. And that's just a knucklehead play. You have got to tackle better than that. And then this is another one, and this one's tough, but he's responsible for this tight end that motions across. And you can tell he thinks this is a run play. He reads this slow, and he leaves his guy open, lets him get out to the flat. And that happens. But there was another play I put on Twitter that's not in this little montage of just the difference in how he and Zach Bond trigger against the run because they're lined up about the same
on the
level.
Touchdown to Mason, yeah.
Yeah, on the Wildcat snap. And yes, they're keying on different things. And yes, Zach Bond's run instincts are elite, and I'm not arguing. It was less, honestly, that play was less about Makuba bad and more about Bond really good.
Yeah.
But Makuba has struggled with consistency, and he's a rookie, that bounced around colleges and positions. I mean, he went from being a nickel at Clemson to a post safety at Texas to a split field safety in Vic Fangio's scheme. And so it's a lot of different things. And he certainly has ability. He's got a lot of raw athletic ability, but he really needs to stop busting coverages at times, which he didn't have any egregious busts in this one. And he's got to tackle better. And I think both of those things can happen. I'm more concerned about the tackling because you would expect the mental reps just to happen over time. But the Eagles really need him to improve down the stretch. And I think there's a very good chance that he will because, again, he's a rookie that's getting his feet under him. But I think the secondary takes a step just simply with Makuba improving if he's able to figure that out.
Yeah, man. Brother Clips coming in. Brother Clips, get in the Discord. We talk about Makuba a lot. I was thinking this off air, actually. Off air, just generally. Seeing as I'm only on air for an hour a week. I was thinking this a couple of days ago. That if Makuba was like a 4th round pick, we'd treat him very differently this year. And the fact is, he, in my opinion, most rankings did not have him as a 2nd round talent. I think the Eagles reached. I didn't have him as a 2nd round talent. If you just literally type in his name and type in pre-draft scouting report and click on most places where they rank him, he was a 3rd to maybe 4th round pick, right? Most places, would you agree? And therefore, we treat him differently because of where the Eagles picked him. And it's almost not fair. He's playing way more than Jadix Hunt did last year. Way more. Jadix Hunt played about 7 snaps in the first 7 weeks of the season. And Jadix Hunt was picked in the 3rd round. So I think some of it is like expectation because of where the Eagles drafted him. And that's not his fault. So at some point, we've got to be a little bit careful where asking the player to be something he's not. He didn't tackle well in college. He's very undersized. Yes, the highlight reels are great because he's smashed around people, but that was never sustainable. How many huge hits have you seen this year where he's rocked somebody? Not many. It was never going to be like it was in college. The guys are too big. So I feel a little bit for him because I think if he was a 3rd round pick, would have been like, oh, it's cool, he's starting. And instead, because he was a 2nd round pick and because there were guys like Watts and stuff in this year's draft class, him and Rory's playing quite well as well. I think it just made that idea that like, oh, like maybe he's not the right guy, but I do feel a little bit bad for him because I think he was overdrafted personally.
He was mid third round on the consensus big board.
There you go. And I think there is a difference, isn't there? Even though it's only like 15, 16 picks, there is a difference how you view a second round pick to a third round pick. Even if he was the very end of the second round, you still just hear second round pick, don't you? And you expect starting player second round. Right, let's finish with the final play, Shane. Can you show Hunt's pick 6 for me? I believe it is in my film thread somewhere, play 5. Most of you have probably seen this play broken down already, so I don't need to go into huge detail in it. I think just a really cool thing is firstly, how they show man coverage, obviously pre-snap with Cooper DeJean running across the formation. And if you just pause it here, Shane, just pre-snap, the benefit of playing Campbell at edge, not that he rushes here, and very, very simply, my favorite, I guess, part of this is there's only one linebacker. So when you have a 5-man front, you have one linebacker. Therefore, Carson Wentz knows in his head, if Zach Bourne comes, I'm throwing a hot route. And I've spoken of late about the danger of throwing hot routes against, funny enough, guys like Flores, which is quite ironic because Wentz must see this in practice all the time. But when you blitz, and as a quarterback, you see a blitz, the worrying thing about hot routes is they're just instinctive sometimes. It's why I don't mind it when the Eagles go down the field sometimes against pressure, because it's an instinctive thing. Right, I've seen him blitzed. What am I taught to do? Linebacker blitzes, no one in the middle of the field, throw the quick slant, inside leverage. I think it's Jefferson on Makuba. I just don't think he sees him. And it's just a very, very clever disguise by Fangio. It's not genius. It's not like, oh, Vic Fangio, oh my God, he's disguising. He's just dropping an edge defender, really. Yes, he's dropping 2 edge defenders. The Eagles like to do this already. As I said, I'm almost not seeing Campbell as an edge anyway. So to me, that's almost like dropping one and rushing one. I think actually the really cool part about this play, Shane, which I don't think he spoke about enough, is how good the actual play by Hunt is. Not the run back. The pick's actually really good. And remember when we drafted him, I said this in the offseason, I was shocked the Eagles didn't use him in coverage more. For me, that was the whole appeal of Jalix Hunt. So I'm really glad to see him doing this, which is really cool. And I think they need to do this more. I see Hunt, and I always have seen him, as a versatile chess piece, not just a pass rusher. And this is the kind of stuff that I've wanted to see for a while. He's dropped into coverage a little bit more of late. He was in coverage 6 times in this game, 10 times a few weeks ago against Tampa Bay. Whereas last year, he basically dropped into coverage the exact same as any other edge rusher. Just to give you very quickly before we finish the numbers, last year he dropped into coverage 18 times. This year he's dropped into coverage 33 times already. And he's played less snaps. So basically the Eagles are asking him to do more in coverage, and I think that's how he should be used. This is a really, really good play.
Yeah, I have seen Quinyon Mitchell drop 6 easier interceptions than this one. So, yeah, it's a really good play by him. Also, low-key, my favorite thing about this play is watch Josh Uche here. So many times you're going to see this guy just destroy this pursuer and get flagged and turn. I love the restraint he has to not get a penalty here. Yes, he gets in the way, but he gets in the way and turns his back just to shield him off instead of trying to destroy him. That is such an unselfish and heads-up move by a guy that doesn't play a whole lot, but just pursuing the play from the backside, getting in the way. Incredible stuff there. Also, just want to mention, I don't know what Campbell thinks he's actually taking away here. I guess he's probably in coverage on the running back, maybe. But
maybe, yeah.
He doesn't really sink over a potential slant window. But I guess it's man coverage. He's got it. Maybe he and Hunt are like kind of tag teaming the running back, whichever way he goes. And that's why. But Campbell, I noticed, doesn't really fall into any sort of a slant window there. But anyways, yeah, I loved Uche's block there. So
right.
Was that your last point?
Shane. We've done over an hour. Again, we've actually been good of late being quicker. But to be fair, we said this off air. This is actually a good thing this week because there was different stuff to talk about. So we had the Campbell, the Dean discussion, the scrambled drills, the play action. There was actually new stuff to watch, which makes our job a lot more interesting because some of the last weeks have been god-awful to watch.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Right, let's get out of here.
yeah, if you guys want more content from us, again, be sure you check out our Patreon. Me, Johnny, and Eric run that together. Patreon.com/Eagles Film Room. I have a N'Kobe Dean player spotlight up, about 30 minutes long, like a 40 to 45-minute long pass game review. I believe Eric will have his matchup. No, he wasn't going to do that. He was doing something different this week because it's the Giants again. And actually, you were too. You weren't doing the big preview
I'm
thing.
gonna go back tomorrow, and just literally go and watch every single Jackson Dart rep. So if you want to come join me and watch every single Jackson Dart rep, come join Patreon and we can take a look. I'm looking forward to it. It's nice when you get to look at other players around the league as well, see what other teams are doing. So yeah, we're gonna get into it tomorrow.
All right, so there you go, guys. You can go check that out. A free 1-week trial of any tier to check out the content. The Discord alone is worth the price of admission. But that is going to do it for this one. So thank you guys for joining us here live. Those of you listening on podcast platforms later, we appreciate you guys too. 5-star ratings and reviews help us get this content out there to more people, and so we certainly appreciate that. But for now, that is it. We'll catch you guys next week to break down the Eagles' revenge game against the New York Giants.